Okay, now welcome back, and we're currently on our journey to CSEC 2024 Mathematics. And I'm going to start off with focusing more on the CXC subjects. You can also look forward to having some other videos done as it relates to topics from Form 1 straight up to Form 4. So if you need help with actually getting some revision done, look forward to those. So we're looking at angle of elevation and depression. So I'm just going to focus more on elevation in this particular video. So this is more of an introduction so you can actually understand what it's actually about. So here I have this guy and I have this ball. Now, what the angle of elevation is about, and I'm going to give you the, of course, the mathematical context, is the angle formed between a horizontal line and an upward line of sight to an object of the horizontal line. So what that actually means in simple terms is your horizontal line would be your line of sight. So when you're standing just looking forward, that's your normal line of sight. And as I just stated, we would call that our horizontal line. So this is our horizontal. So that's our line of sight, if you're more comfortable with that. Great. So remember now, this ball as you see it here is elevated. It's above the person's head. So always you think of it that the elevation will be in relation to looking above the person's line of sight. So in your CXC questions, this is more worded, but we'll go through that at a later time. So if we look here now, we would notice that this individual, he is looking, if he elevates his head or even his eyes, he could look straight to the ball. And of course, we're looking at it in a straight line. And this ball here, we're going to say it's our object. Now for CXC, the object could be the top of a building. We can have it sometimes as a tower with a person in a boat. But again, just remember this very simple thing. We have the observer, which is this guy I have here, his horizontal line of sight, a straight line looking towards the object, and finally, which is the most important part, here, this here is an angle, and that here, or this right here, is our angle of elevation. So these are very simple for you to remember. You would have someone looking at something. It needs to be on a horizontal line of sight. Then afterwards, you'd have a straight line looking to an object that is more or less vertically above the person's head. And the angle between that horizontal line and that straight line, where they're looking towards the object, that is the angle of elevation. Now, of course, many students would always ask me, sir, how is this relevant and why do I need to know this? Now, let me just give you a few examples of how it actually is used in our day-to-day lives, so you can have a better understanding and appreciation of this topic. Now, if you ever look up at the stars, there's something called stargazing, where you spot something we call the Big Dipper and Orion's Belt. There's an angle that you would need to look at those for. Again, it's above your head, so you look at it from an angle in order for you to actually see it. So that's just one simple idea. A more practical idea would be in photography. Now, sometimes I would go out and I would capture different things, sometimes buildings, or sometimes like if you go into interior doing mountains. And whether it be with me holding the camera or me using my tripod, I have to use angle of elevations to position my camera just right to ensure that I have the entire subject in frame. Though not as technical as solving it, but with more complex materials, it actually works that way. Then, for example, sports. Many students love basketball. So when a player shoots the balls, they have to angle their gaze upwards to see the hoop. So, for example, if they're making that free throw, that's one way you can actually observe angle of elevation being used. Then, next for architecture and engineering. So when the architects are designing skyscrapers or monuments, they have to take into account how people will see these structures from the ground. The angle of elevation helps them understand the straight lines and how to design accordingly. And then the most practical example we have is for the pilots looking at air travel. They use the angle of elevation when they're ascending after takeoff, as they need to angle a plane upwards to gain altitude. And then finally, this is becoming a little bit popular in the country, where we're doing hiking and mountaineering. So when you have to look at how steep the hill is, the angle of elevation can tell you and how to prepare for that actual climb. So generally speaking, every day we use the concept. Of course, this is the maths behind it, but when you're looking at a bird or plane, or even when you're actually using your camera to shoot different things you see, you may be using angle of elevation as part of it. So with that being said, there'll still be the close of this video, and I hope this actually gives you some appreciation for angle of elevation. Going forward, we'll now start answering questions for this topic. I do hope you enjoy.